The twisted metal screamed as it scraped against asphalt, sparks flying like angry fireflies in the darkness. Raina Cole gripped her steering wheel tighter, watching in horror as the black luxury sedan ahead of her suddenly jerked to the right, tires smoking as the driver seemed to lose all control. The car flew off the highway, tumbling down the rocky embankment before slamming into a cluster of trees with a sickening crunch. Then came the orange glow flames licking at the crumpled hood, growing bigger by the second. Most people would have called 911 and waited. Raina wasn't most people. She yanked her Honda to the shoulder, hazard lights flashing as she grabbed the tactical knife from her glove compartment and the small fire extinguisher from her trunk. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she scrambled down the slope, loose rocks sliding under her boots. The heat hit her face like a slap when she reached the wreckage. Through the spider-webbed windshield, she could see a man slumped over the steering wheel, blood trickling from his forehead. He wasn't moving. "Hey." She pounded on the driver's side window. "Can you hear me?" Nothing. The flames were spreading, creeping toward the passenger compartment. Raina didn't hesitate. She pulled back and drove her elbow into the window, ignoring the sharp pain as glass shattered around her. Her fingers found the door handle, but it was jammed. The driver's door was completely crushed from the impact. She ran to the passenger side, praying it would open. The handle clicked and the door swung wide. Thank God. Raina crawled across the seat, her lungs burning from the smoke that was starting to fill the cabin. The man was unconscious, his breathing shallow. She could see he was maybe in his early 30s, well-dressed in a navy suit that was now torn and bloodied. Come on, she muttered, sawing at his seatbelt with her knife. The blade was sharp, designed for emergency situations just like this. The belt snapped free and she hooked her arms under his shoulders, pulling him toward the passenger door. He was heavier than she expected, dead weight that made her muscles strain. The heat was getting worse. She could hear the fire crackling louder, smell the acrid scent of burning rubber and plastic. Her training kicked in, the same training that had saved her life 5 years ago when 2 men broke into her college apartment. She'd learned to stay calm under pressure, to think clearly when others panicked. "You're not dying on my watch," she said through gritted teeth, dragging him free of the car. His body was limp, his head lolling against her shoulder as she pulled him away from the wreckage. 20 feet. 30. 50. The gas tank exploded just as she reached the bottom of the embankment, the force of the blast knocking them both to the ground. She threw herself over him, shielding his body with hers as burning debris rained down around them. The heat was intense, singeing the back of her jacket, but they were alive. For a moment, they lay there in the dirt, her face pressed against his chest, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. Then he stirred, a soft groan escaping his lips. "Hey," she said softly, pulling back to look at his face. His eyes were opening, unfocused and confused. "You're okay. You were in an accident, but you're okay." He blinked up at her, his gaze struggling to focus. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. It wasn't an accident." "What?" Raina leaned closer, certain she'd misheard. "Alex did this," he mumbled, his head falling back against the ground. "Alex wanted me dead." Before she could ask what he meant, the sound of sirens filled the air. The ambulance was coming, and she could see the flashing lights of a fire truck approaching on the highway above. Help was here. But as Raina looked down at the man she'd just saved, his words echoed in her mind. It wasn't an accident. Alex did this. She'd thought she was saving someone from a terrible crash, but if he was telling the truth, she'd just saved someone from murder. The paramedics arrived first, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they made their way down the slope. Raina moved back to give them room, watching as they checked his vital signs and loaded him onto a stretcher. One of them, a woman with kind eyes, approached her. "Are you hurt? You've got some cuts on your arms." Raina looked down and saw the paramedic was right. Her forearms were scratched from the broken glass, and her jacket was singed from the explosion. But she felt fine, running on adrenaline and the satisfaction of knowing she'd done something that mattered. "I'm okay," she said. "Just some scratches. Is he going to be all right?" "He's stable. Concussion, some cuts and bruises, but nothing life-threatening thanks to you. You saved his life." As they carried him up the embankment, Raina followed, her mind racing. She'd been driving home from a late night at the office. Just another Tuesday evening turned into something she'd never forget. Her name was Raina Cole, and she was a forensic data analyst for Morrison & Associates, a small firm that specialized in financial investigations. She spent her days looking for patterns in numbers, tracking down fraud and embezzlement schemes. She was good at finding the truth hidden in spreadsheets and bank records. But this was different. This was real-world dangerous, not just numbers on a screen. The ambulance doors closed and she watched the red and white vehicle disappear into the night. A police officer approached her, notebook in hand, asking the standard questions about what she'd seen. She told him about the car losing control, about pulling the man from the wreckage, but she didn't mention what he'd said about Alex. Not yet. She needed to understand what she'd stumbled into first. An hour later, she was back in her car, following the ambulance to St. Mary's Hospital. She told herself she just wanted to make sure he was all right, that it was the responsible thing to do. But deep down she knew it was more than that. His words had hooked something inside her, the same instinct that made her excellent at her job. There was a puzzle here and she needed to solve it. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and floor wax, bright fluorescent lights making everything look stark and cold. She found the emergency room and approached the reception desk, where a tired-looking nurse was typing on a computer. "Excuse me," Raina said. "I'm looking for information about a man who was brought in from a car accident about an hour ago. I'm the one who pulled him from the car." The nurse looked up, her expression softening. "Oh, you're the good Samaritan the paramedics were talking about. He's in room 12, getting some stitches. The doctor says he'll be fine. Can I see him? Are you family?" Raina hesitated. "No, but I saved his life. I just want to make sure he's okay." The nurse studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I suppose that's all right. But keep it brief. He needs rest." Room 12 was halfway down the hall, and Raina knocked softly before pushing the door open. The man was sitting up in bed, a bandage across his forehead and his arm in a sling. He looked much better than he had an hour ago, though there were still dark circles under his eyes. When he saw her, his face lit up with recognition. "You're the woman who saved me." "I'm Raina Cole," she said, stepping into the room. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck," he said with a weak smile. "But alive thanks to you. I'm Ethan Locke." The name was familiar, though she couldn't place it right away. "Do you remember what happened?" His expression darkened. "I remember everything. The car started acting strange on the highway. The steering wheel wouldn't respond and then the brakes failed. I thought it was just a malfunction until..." He paused, studying her face. "Until I remembered what you heard me say down there." "About Alex?" Ethan nodded slowly. "Alex Martinez. My business partner. We've been having some disagreements lately about the direction of our company. I found some irregularities in our financial records, things that didn't add up. When I confronted him about it, he got angry. Really angry." "What kind of irregularities?" "Money disappearing from accounts, fake vendor payments, that sort of thing. I'm CEO of Locke Technologies. We develop software for financial institutions, ironically enough. The missing money adds up to millions." Raina felt her pulse quicken. Financial fraud was her specialty, the thing she'd spent years learning to detect and trace. "Have you gone to the police?" "Not yet. I wanted to be sure before I made any accusations. Alex has been my partner for 8 years. We built this company together from nothing. If I'm wrong about this..." "But you don't think you're wrong?" "No," Ethan said quietly. "I don't. And after tonight, I'm certain he tried to kill me to keep me quiet." The room fell silent except for the steady beep of the heart monitor. Raina looked at this man she'd just met, seeing the fear and confusion in his eyes. She'd saved his life, but she was starting to realize that might have been the easy part. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I don't know," he admitted. "I can't trust anyone at the company. Alex has allies there, people who might be involved in this. And I can't prove the car was sabotaged. The police will think I'm paranoid." Raina made a decision that would change both their lives. "I might be able to help you." "How?" "I'm a forensic data analyst. I specialize in financial investigations. If Alex is embezzling money, I can find the evidence." Ethan stared at her for a long moment. "You don't even know me. Why would you want to get involved in this?" It was a good question, one she wasn't entirely sure she could answer. Maybe it was because she'd seen real evil before, had felt helpless against it until she'd learned to fight back. Maybe it was because she recognized something in Ethan's eyes, the same determination she'd felt when she'd decided to never be a victim again. "Because somebody tried to kill you tonight," she said simply. "And because I have the skills to help you prove it." Outside the hospital window, dawn was starting to break, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Raina didn't know it yet, but she'd just taken the first step into a world of corporate corruption and deadly secrets. She'd saved Ethan Locke's life, but now she was about to save his company and maybe find something she'd been missing in her own life. A reason to fight for someone else. The next morning brought a steady drizzle that matched Ethan's mood as he sat in his hospital bed, staring at the business card Raina had left behind. Morrison and Associates, forensic data analyst. He'd looked up her company online and found an impressive track record of exposing corporate fraud. She wasn't just offering to help, she was qualified to help. But trust didn't come easily to Ethan Locke. He'd learned that lesson the hard way when his father's business partner had stolen their family construction company 20 years ago, leaving them with nothing but debt and broken promises. Since then, Ethan had built his walls high and thick, letting very few people close enough to hurt him. Alex Martinez had been one of those people. The door opened and Dr. Peterson entered with a clipboard. "Good news, Mr. Locke. Your CT scan looks normal, and your other injuries are minor. I can discharge you this afternoon." "Thank you," Ethan said, though he wasn't sure where he was supposed to go. His car was a twisted wreck, and he couldn't shake the feeling that someone might be watching, waiting for another chance to finish what they'd started. "There's someone here to see you," Dr. Peterson added. "A woman named Sarah Chen. She says she's your assistant." Ethan's stomach dropped. Sarah had worked for him for 3 years, but she was also close to Alex. How much did she know? How much could he trust her? "Send her in," he said, bracing himself. Sarah burst through the door like a hurricane, her usually perfect composure shattered. Her eyes were red from crying, and she clutched a box of tissues in her hands. "Oh God, Ethan, I was so scared," she said, rushing to his bedside. "When I heard about the accident, I thought you were dead." Her emotion seemed genuine, but Ethan found himself analyzing her every word, looking for signs of deception. This was what Alex had done to him, turned him into someone who couldn't trust even his own employees. "I'm okay, Sarah. How did you hear about it?" "It was on the morning news. They said a car went off Highway 91 and exploded. When I saw it was your license plate number." She shuddered. "What happened?" Ethan studied her face carefully. "The car malfunctioned. The brakes failed." "That's terrible. But thank God that woman was there to help you. The news said she pulled you out just before the car exploded." "She's a hero." "Yes, she is." Ethan made a mental note that the story was already public. That might complicate things if Alex was paying attention to local news. Sarah pulled out her phone. "I've been fielding calls all morning. The board wants to know if you're all right, and there are reporters trying to reach you." "Oh, and Alex called. He's really worried about you." "I'll bet he is," Ethan muttered. "What?" "Nothing. Listen, Sarah, I need you to do something for me, but I need you to keep it absolutely confidential. Can you do that?" Her expression grew serious. "Of course. What do you need?" "I want you to have my car towed to Mitchell's garage instead of the insurance company's preferred shop. Tell them I want a full mechanical inspection before they do anything else." "Why?" Ethan hesitated. Sarah had been loyal to him for 3 years, but she was also friendly with Alex. If he was wrong about his suspicions, he'd be destroying relationships for nothing. But if he was right, "I think someone might have tampered with it." Sarah's eyes widened. "Tampered with it? You mean like, on purpose?" "I can't prove it yet. But I need to know for sure." "Ethan, that's horrible. Who would do something like that?" He didn't answer directly. "Can you arrange the tow without anyone else knowing?" "Yes, but..." "And I need you to compile a list of everyone who had access to my car yesterday. Anyone who was in the parking garage, anyone who might have been near it." Sarah looked confused and frightened. "You really think someone tried to hurt you?" "I think someone tried to kill me," Ethan said quietly. "And until I know who, I can't trust anyone at the company. Not even you." The words stung, he could see it in her face. But he needed her to understand the seriousness of the situation. "I would never hurt you," Sarah said, tears starting to form in her eyes. "You saved my career when no one else would hire me. You gave me a chance when I was nobody." "I know," Ethan said, his voice gentler. "That's why I'm asking for your help. But I need you to be careful. If someone is watching me, they might be watching you too." Sarah nodded, wiping her eyes. "What else do you need?" "I want you to clear my schedule for the rest of the week. Tell everyone I'm recovering from the accident." "And Sarah?" "If Alex asks about me, just tell him I'm resting and not taking visitors." "He's going to want to see you. He's called 5 times already." "I'm sure he has. But I'm not ready to see him yet." After Sarah left, Ethan lay back against his pillows, exhaustion weighing down his eyelids. But every time he started to drift off, he heard the sound of screeching tires and felt the steering wheel jerking in his hands. Someone had tried to kill him, and that someone was still out there. Around noon, there was another knock on his door. This time it was Raina, carrying a cup of coffee and a paper bag that smelled like fresh bagels. "I thought you might be hungry," she said, setting the bag on his bedside table. "Hospital food isn't exactly gourmet." "Thank you," Ethan said, surprised by how glad he was to see her. "You didn't have to come back. I wanted to check on you. And I've been thinking about what you told me last night." Raina pulled up a chair and sat down, her expression serious. "I did some research on your company. Lock Technologies has been growing rapidly over the past 5 years. Your software is used by major banks and financial institutions across the country. We've been fortunate," Ethan said carefully. "Your partner, Alex Martinez, has been with the company since the beginning. He handles the financial side while you focus on product development and client relations." "That's right." "Which means he has access to all the company's accounts and financial records." Ethan nodded. "Where are you going with this?" "I want to help you," Raina said simply. "But I need to know exactly what you found that made you suspicious." Ethan studied her face. She had an honest look about her, direct eyes that didn't look away when she spoke. But could he trust her with information that could destroy his company if it fell into the wrong hands? "Why do you want to help me?" he asked. "You barely know me." Raina was quiet for a moment, staring at her hands. "When I was in college, 2 men broke into my apartment. They had knives. I managed to get away, but just barely. After that, I learned to fight back. I learned self-defense, emergency response, how to stay calm under pressure. I promised myself I'd never be helpless again." She looked up at him. "Last night, when you said it wasn't an accident, I saw something in your eyes. The same feeling I had when those men were in my apartment. Someone with power was trying to hurt someone without it. I can't walk away from that." Ethan felt something shift in his chest. He'd been alone with his suspicions for weeks, afraid to trust anyone. But Raina had already saved his life once. Maybe it was time to take a chance on someone. 3 weeks ago, I was reviewing our quarterly reports when I noticed some discrepancies," he began. "Payments to vendors I'd never heard of. Services that didn't match any work we'd contracted. When I asked Alex about it, he said they were routine expenses, nothing to worry about. But you didn't believe him. Something felt off. So I started digging deeper. I found a pattern of payments going back 2 years. Always to different companies, always for amounts just under the threshold that would require board approval." "How much money are we talking about?" "Close to $3 million. Raina whistled softly. "That's enough to kill 4. The worst part is I think he's been planning to frame me for it. Some of the fake accounts have my signature on the authorization forms. If this comes out, it won't just destroy the company, it'll destroy me personally." "Do you have copies of the financial records?" "Some. But they're on my work computer and I can't access them from here." Raina stood up. "Then we need to get them." I told you I wanted to help. I meant it." Ethan felt a surge of hope for the first time since the accident. "It's not going to be easy. Alex has been watching me closely since I started asking questions. And if he really did sabotage my car, then we'll be careful," Raina said. "But we can't let him get away with this. If he's willing to kill you to cover up his crimes, what's to stop him from going after someone else?" That afternoon, Ethan was discharged from the hospital. Raina drove him to his apartment, a modern high-rise downtown that felt more like a hotel than a home. As they rode the elevator to the 20th floor, he found himself studying her profile. She was beautiful, with high cheekbones and intelligent eyes, but there was something else about her, a quiet strength that made him feel safe for the first time in weeks. "Nice place," Raina said as they entered his apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city, and the furniture was expensive but impersonal. "It's convenient," Ethan said, realizing how empty his life must look to an outsider. "I spend most of my time at the office anyway." "What about family? Friends?" "Not much of either. I tend to keep to myself." Raina nodded as if she understood. "Me too. It's easier that way." They spent the next hour planning their approach. Ethan would return to work the next day, acting as if nothing had changed. Meanwhile, Raina would visit the office under the pretense of discussing a potential consulting contract. It would give her a chance to observe the office dynamics and maybe get a look at Alex without arousing suspicion. "What if he recognizes you from the news coverage?" Ethan asked. "The news didn't show my face, just mentioned that a good Samaritan had helped rescue you. Besides, I clean up well." As evening approached, Raina prepared to leave. "I'll pick you up at 8 tomorrow morning. We'll drive to the office together." "Raina," Ethan said as she reached for the door handle. "Thank you. I know you're taking a risk helping me." She turned back to him, her expression serious. Just promise me something. If this gets dangerous, if you think Alex is onto us, you'll let me know immediately. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. After she left, Ethan stood at his window watching the city lights twinkle below. For the first time in years, he didn't feel completely alone. Raina Cole had walked into his life at the worst possible moment, and somehow she'd become the best thing about it. He just hoped he wasn't putting her in danger too. The next morning, Raina arrived at Ethan's apartment building at exactly 8 o'clock, wearing a crisp navy business suit and carrying a leather briefcase. She traded her usual casual attire for the polished look of a professional consultant, complete with understated jewelry and low heels. When Ethan saw her in the lobby, he barely recognized her. "You weren't kidding about cleaning up well?" he said, impressed. "I figured if I'm going to play the part of a forensic consultant, I should look the part." She handed him a business card. "I made some temporary cards for Morrison & Associates. If anyone asks, I'm there to discuss a routine compliance audit." During the drive to Lock Technologies, they went over their plan once more. Ethan would introduce Raina to key staff members, giving her a chance to observe office dynamics and identify potential allies. Most importantly, she needed to get a read on Alex Martinez without raising his suspicions. "What's he like?" Raina asked as they pulled into the parking garage. "Charming. Confident. He's the kind of person who can make you believe anything he's saying, even when you know he's lying." Ethan's voice was bitter. "That's how he fooled me for so long." Lock Technologies occupied 3 floors of a modern glass building in the business district. The lobby was sleek and professional, with the company logo prominently displayed behind the reception desk. Ethan led Raina to the elevator, his posture tense as they rode up to the executive floor. "Mr. Locke." Sarah rushed over as soon as they stepped off the elevator. "You shouldn't be here. The doctor said you need rest." "I'm fine, Sarah. Just some meetings I can't postpone." He gestured toward Raina. "This is Raina Cole from Morrison & Associates. She's here to discuss a potential consulting contract." Sarah's face lit up with recognition. "You're the woman who saved his life." "I just happened to be in the right place at the right time," Raina said modestly. "Well, thank goodness for that. I don't know what we would have done if—" Sarah's voice trailed off and she shook her head. "I'm sorry, I'm being unprofessional. It's just been such a shock." "I understand," Raina said gently. "It must be difficult for everyone who cares about him." As they walked through the office, Ethan pointed out key personnel. Jerome Washington, the IT director, was a tall man with graying hair who'd been with the company for 4 years. Linda Rodriguez, the head of human resources, was in her 50s with a warm smile but sharp eyes. David Kim, the lead developer, was young and energetic, clearly devoted to his work. "And that's Alex's office," Ethan said, nodding toward a corner office with glass walls. Through the transparent walls, Raina could see a man in his late 30s with dark hair and an expensive suit, talking animatedly on the phone. "He's good-looking," Raina observed. "And he knows it. Alex has always been the face of the company while I stayed in the background. He's great with clients and investors." "Great at manipulating people, you mean?" "I didn't always see it that way," Ethan admitted. "I thought we were a good team." Alex finished his phone call and looked up, his face breaking into a concerned expression when he saw Ethan. He immediately left his office and approached them. "Ethan, thank God you're all right. I was so worried when I heard about the accident." Alex's voice was full of genuine-sounding concern as he clasped Ethan's shoulder. "You should be home resting, not worrying about work." "I'm fine, Alex. Just a few bumps and bruises." Alex's attention turned to Raina, his expression curious. "And you are?" "Raina Cole from Morrison & Associates," she said, extending her hand. "I'm here to discuss a potential consulting arrangement." Alex's handshake was firm and lingered just a moment too long. "A pleasure to meet you, Ms. Cole. What kind of consulting do you do?" "Forensic data analysis, compliance audits, financial investigations, that sort of thing." Something flickered in Alex's eyes so briefly that Raina might have imagined it. "I see. Well, I hope we can be of help to each other." "I'm sure we can," Raina said with a professional smile. Alex turned back to Ethan. "We should talk soon. There are some urgent matters that need your attention." "Of course. Later this afternoon?" "Perfect. I'll have Sarah schedule something." Alex's smile was warm, but Raina noticed he didn't quite meet Ethan's eyes. "Again, I'm so glad you're okay. When I heard about the accident, I couldn't believe it." After Alex walked away, Ethan led Raina to his office. It was smaller than Alex's but more personal, with photos of software development teams and industry awards on the walls. "Well?" Ethan asked, closing the door behind them. He's definitely hiding something, Raina said. Did you see how his expression changed when I mentioned financial investigations? He's nervous about something. But is he nervous enough to commit murder? That's what we need to find out. Raina sat down at Ethan's desk and opened her briefcase, pulling out a small device. Before we go any further, I need to check something. What's that? A bug detector. If Alex is paranoid enough to sabotage your car, he might be paranoid enough to plant listening devices in your office. She swept the device around the room, checking behind picture frames, under the desk, and around the phone. After a few minutes, she shook her head. Nothing. Either he's not that paranoid or he's very good at hiding them. Or he doesn't need to bug my office because he has other ways of monitoring me. Raina looked up sharply. What do you mean? Think about it. Sarah schedules all my meetings. Jerome manages our computer systems. Alex has access to my calendar, my emails, my phone records. He doesn't need hidden microphones to keep tabs on me. That's actually worse than bugs, Raina said. It means he has institutional control over your information. Ethan turned on his computer and entered his password. Let me show you what I found. For the next hour they went through the financial records together. Raina took notes as Ethan explained the pattern of suspicious payments, pointing out discrepancies and irregularities that had first caught his attention. Her experience with financial investigations was obvious. She spotted things he'd missed and made connections he hadn't considered. Look at this, she said, pointing to a series of transactions. These payments to Richmond Consulting, they're always exactly $49,000. Just under the $50,000 threshold for board approval. I noticed that too. But when I called the number listed for Richmond Consulting, it was disconnected. What about the address? A mailbox service downtown. No actual office. Raina leaned back in her chair. He's been careful. Small amounts, fake companies, your signature on the authorization forms. If this came to light, it would look like you were embezzling the money. Which is probably the plan. Frame me for the theft, then take over the company. But he got impatient. Maybe you were getting too close to the truth, so he decided to eliminate you instead. A knock on the door interrupted them. Sarah peered in, looking apologetic. I'm sorry to disturb you, but Alex wants to know if you can move your meeting up to 2 o'clock. He has a client call at 4. Ethan glanced at his watch. It was already noon. That's fine. Tell him I'll be there. After Sarah left, Raina gathered her notes. I should go. I don't want to be here when you meet with Alex. What's your next move? I'm going to start tracing these fake companies. See who's really behind them and where the money went. I'll also check with my contact at the DMV about your car. If it was sabotaged, there might be traces of tampering that survived the fire. Be careful, Ethan said, surprised by how much he meant it. If Alex suspects you're investigating him, I can take care of myself, Raina said, but her voice was gentle. You're the one who needs to be careful. Don't give him any reason to think you're suspicious. I'll try to act normal. Good. I'll call you tonight and let you know what I find. After Raina left, Ethan tried to focus on routine work, but his mind kept wandering to the upcoming meeting with Alex. How do you have a normal conversation with someone who might have tried to kill you? How do you pretend everything is fine when you know your business partner has been stealing from you for years? At 2 o'clock, he walked to Alex's office, his palms sweating despite the air conditioning. Alex looked up from his computer with a warm smile. Ethan, come in, sit down. How are you feeling? Better. Still a little sore, but nothing serious. That's good to hear. I have to tell you, when I got the call about the accident, I was terrified. The thought of losing you. Alex shook his head. We've been through so much together. Building this company from nothing, dealing with all the challenges over the years. I can't imagine doing this without you. The words sounded sincere, but Ethan found himself analyzing every inflection, looking for signs of deception. Was Alex really that good an actor, or was Ethan letting paranoia cloud his judgment? I'm not going anywhere, Ethan said. Good. Because we have some important decisions to make. The Patterson Group wants to meet next week about the acquisition offer. Ethan's blood ran cold. 6 months ago, Patterson Group had approached them about buying Lock Technologies. The offer was substantial enough to make both partners wealthy beyond their dreams. But Ethan had been hesitant to sell, preferring to keep building the company they'd created. I thought we agreed to table that discussion, Ethan said. We did, but circumstances have changed. The market is shifting, and this might be our best opportunity to cash out while we're ahead. Or it might be your best opportunity to cover up years of embezzlement, Ethan thought. If the company was sold, the financial irregularities might never come to light. I still think we should wait, Ethan said carefully. We're just hitting our stride. Why sell now? Alex's expression hardened slightly. Because sometimes you have to know when to walk away. We've been fortunate so far, but the tech industry is unpredictable. One wrong move, one bad quarter, and everything we've built could disappear. Is that a threat? Of course not. I'm just being realistic about the risks we face. They talked for another 20 minutes, covering routine business matters, but Ethan could feel the tension beneath the surface. Alex was pushing harder than usual, more insistent about his opinions. There was an edge to his voice that hadn't been there before. As Ethan prepared to leave, Alex stood up and walked around the desk. I'm glad you're okay, he said, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. I know we don't always see eye to eye on business matters, but you're like a brother to me. I hope you know that. I know, Ethan lied. That evening, Ethan sat in his apartment, staring at the city lights and waiting for Raina's call. When his phone finally rang at 8 o'clock, he grabbed it eagerly. What did you find? He asked without preamble. Good news and bad news, Raina said. The good news is that Mitchell's garage found evidence of tampering with your car. The brake lines were cut, but in a way that would make them fail gradually rather than immediately. Whoever did it wanted it to look like an accident. Ethan's stomach clenched. Hearing the confirmation made it real in a way he hadn't expected. And the bad news? The evidence was destroyed in the fire. We know what happened, but we can't prove it in court. So we're back to square one. Not exactly. I've been tracing the fake companies and I found something interesting. Richmond Consulting, the company that received those $49,000 payments? It's connected to a bank account in the Cayman Islands. Offshore banking. Of course. It gets better. The account was opened with a fake ID, but the signature matches other documents I found. Financial records, lease agreements, that sort of thing. You found Alex's signature? I found someone's signature. But here's the really interesting part: the bank account received deposits from 3 other fake companies that also did business with Lock Technologies. We're not talking about $49,000 here and there. We're talking about systematic theft over multiple years. Ethan felt a surge of anger. How much? Based on what I've traced so far? At least $6 million. $6 million? Ethan couldn't finish the sentence. It was worse than he'd imagined. There's more. I found records of stock purchases made from the offshore account. Shares in Patterson Group, the company that wants to buy your business. What does that mean? It means Alex has been betting against your company while stealing from it. He's been setting up the acquisition from the beginning, probably planning to make money on both ends of the deal. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they formed was uglier than Ethan had expected. Alex hadn't just been embezzling money, he'd been systematically destroying the company from the inside while positioning himself to profit from its sale. We need to go to the police, Ethan said. With what? Financial records that show suspicious transactions? A car accident that destroyed the evidence of sabotage? We need something concrete, something that directly links Alex to the theft. What do you suggest? I suggest we set a trap. The next morning, Raina arrived at Morrison & Associates early, her mind racing with possibilities. She'd spent most of the night analyzing the financial records Ethan had given her, and the pattern was becoming clearer. Alex Martinez wasn't just stealing money, he was systematically destroying Lock Technologies from within while positioning himself to profit from its collapse. Her office was small but efficient, with 2 monitors displaying spreadsheets and database searches. She'd learned to love the quiet satisfaction of following digital breadcrumbs, connecting dots that others missed. But this case was different. This time it was personal. Around 9 o'clock her phone rang. It was Ethan. Alex just called an emergency board meeting for this afternoon, he said, his voice tight with stress. He says there are some financial irregularities that need to be addressed immediately. Raina's blood went cold. He's making his move. That's what I'm afraid of. If he presents altered records to the board, he can make it look like I've been embezzling money while positioning himself as the hero who discovered the theft. How long do we have? The meeting is at 3 o'clock. 5 hours. That's not enough time to build a comprehensive case, but it might be enough to gather the evidence we need to expose him. What do you need from me? Access to the company's main server. I need to see the original financial records before Alex has a chance to alter them. Jerome controls the server access. I trust him, but I'm not sure how much I should tell him. Tell him just enough to get me what I need. If he's loyal to you, he'll help. If he's not, then we'll know soon enough. An hour later, Raina was back at Lock Technologies, but this time she wasn't playing the role of a consultant. She was a woman on a mission, and everyone in the office could sense the change in her demeanor. Ethan led her to Jerome's office, where the IT director was troubleshooting a server issue. Jerome looked up as they entered, his expression curious. "Jerome, I need a favor," Ethan said. "I need you to give Ms. Cole access to our financial database." Jerome's eyebrows rose. "What kind of access?" "Complete access. Every record, every transaction going back 3 years. That's unusual. May I ask why?" Ethan hesitated, then made a decision that would test Jerome's loyalty. "Because I think someone has been embezzling money from the company, and I need to prove it before the board meeting this afternoon." Jerome's expression went from curious to shocked. "Embezzling? Are you serious?" "Deadly serious. And I think that someone tried to kill me to keep me quiet." Jerome stared at him for a long moment, then turned to his computer. "What do you need?" "Everything," Raina said, pulling up a chair. "Financial records, email logs, access records showing who viewed what files and when. I need to build a timeline of the theft." "This is going to take a while," Jerome warned. "We don't have a while," Raina said. "We have 4 hours." For the next 3 hours, Raina worked with an intensity that amazed both men. She pulled up records, cross-referenced transactions, and traced the flow of money through the company's accounts. Jerome helped her navigate the system, printing out documents and backing up files to secure drives. "Look at this," Raina said, pointing to her screen. "Someone has been systematically deleting email records. But they didn't realize that deleted emails are backed up to the server for 90 days. Can you recover them?" Ethan asked. "Jerome can." "Jerome, I need you to restore the deleted emails for the past 3 months. Specifically, anything involving Alex Martinez and external vendors." Jerome's fingers flew over the keyboard. "This is going to take about 20 minutes. While they waited, Raina continued analyzing the financial data. The pattern was becoming undeniable: fake companies, inflated invoices, money disappearing into offshore accounts. But she needed the smoking gun, the piece of evidence that would make the connection impossible to deny. "Got them," Jerome said as recovered emails began appearing on his screen. Raina scanned through the messages, looking for anything that might be incriminating. Most were routine business communications, but then she found something that made her heart race. "Ethan, look at this." She pointed to an email from Alex to someone named Robert Chin at Richmond Consulting. "It's dated 2 weeks ago." Ethan read the message aloud. "Robert, we need to accelerate the timeline. Ethan is asking too many questions about the vendor payments. Can you have the Patterson Group make their final offer by next week? Once the sale goes through, we'll be in the clear." "Richmond Consulting is one of the fake companies," Raina explained. "And Robert Chin doesn't exist." "I checked." "Then who was Alex emailing?" "Himself. He set up fake email accounts to create a paper trail that would support the embezzlement scheme. But he made a mistake: he sent this message from his real company email instead of one of the fake accounts." Jerome looked over their shoulders. "There's more. Look at this response." Another email appeared on the screen, this one from Robert Chin back to Alex. "The Patterson Group is getting impatient. They want to close the deal as soon as possible. If Ethan won't agree to the sale, we may need to consider other options." "Other options," Ethan repeated. "Like sabotaging my car." "It's not explicit enough to prove attempted murder," Raina said. "But it's definitely conspiracy to commit fraud." "There's something else," Jerome said quietly. "I've been monitoring the system, and Alex has been accessing these files all morning. He's been deleting records and altering documents." "Can you prove it?" "I have logs showing every change he's made with timestamps." "He's been busy." Raina felt a surge of excitement. "That's tampering with evidence. Even if we can't prove he tried to kill you, we can prove he's been destroying records to cover up the theft. We need to stop him before he can do any more damage," Ethan said. "Already on it," Jerome said, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "I'm locking down his access to the financial systems. He won't be able to make any more changes." "Won't he notice?" "Not until he tries to log in. And by then it'll be too late." Raina gathered all the evidence. They'd collected: the financial records, the recovered emails, the access logs showing Alex's attempts to cover his tracks. It was a compelling case, but she knew they needed more than just digital evidence. "We need to catch him in the act," she said. "If he's planning to present altered records to the board, we need to be there to challenge him." "The board meeting is in 30 minutes, Ethan said. "Then we'd better get ready." As they prepared to leave Jerome's office, Raina noticed something on one of the monitors. "Jerome, what's that?" He looked where she was pointing. "It's the building's security system. I help maintain it as part of my IT duties. Can you access the parking garage cameras?" "Sure, why?" "I want to see if anyone was near Ethan's car the night before the accident." Jerome pulled up the security footage, scrolling back to the day of the accident. They watched as employees came and went from the parking garage, but nothing seemed unusual until Jerome paused the video. "There," he said, pointing to a figure in dark clothing. "Someone's near your car." The image was grainy, but they could see someone crouched beside Ethan's car, working on something near the front wheel. The timestamp showed it was after midnight, long after the office had closed. "Can you enhance the image?" Raina asked. Jerome worked on the footage, adjusting the contrast and brightness. Slowly the figure became clearer. It was a man average height, wearing gloves and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. "I can't make out the face," Jerome said. "What about the license plate of that car in the background?" Jerome enhanced that portion of the image. The license plate was partially visible, and Raina quickly wrote down the numbers. "I'll run this through the DMV database," she said. "If we can identify the car, we might be able to identify the person." "We don't have time for that now," Ethan said. "The board meeting is starting in 15 minutes. "Then let's go," Raina said, gathering her evidence. "It's time to expose Alex Martinez." As they walked toward the conference room, Raina felt the familiar rush of adrenaline that came with closing a case. But this time, it was mixed with something else, a fierce protectiveness toward the man walking beside her. Ethan had been betrayed by someone he trusted, and she was going to make sure Alex paid for what he'd done. The conference room was already filling up when they arrived. The board members were settling into their seats, and Alex was at the head of the table, arranging papers and preparing his presentation. He looked up as they entered, and Raina saw a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "Ethan," Alex said smoothly. "I'm glad you could make it. Are you feeling well enough to participate?" "I'm feeling much better," Ethan said, taking his seat. "In fact, I've been doing some investigating of my own." Alex's smile faltered slightly. "Investigating?" "Into the financial irregularities you mentioned. I think the board will be very interested in what I've found." The boardroom fell silent as Ethan took his seat, Raina standing behind him with a folder of evidence in her hands. The 6 board members, all respected business leaders who had invested in Lock Technologies, looked between Ethan and Alex with growing concern. "Before we begin," Alex said, his voice steady despite the obvious tension, "I should mention that there's been a development in our investigation. I've discovered some serious financial irregularities that need immediate attention." "What kind of irregularities?" asked Margaret Foster, the board's chairwoman and a retired banking executive. Alex opened his laptop and projected a spreadsheet onto the conference room screen. "Unauthorized payments to fake vendors, signatures on documents that don't match our approval process, and money being transferred to offshore accounts. I'm afraid it appears that someone has been embezzling funds from the company." The board members murmured among themselves, studying the projected data. Raina noticed that Alex's presentation was polished and professional, designed to lead to an inevitable conclusion. "The evidence points to a systematic theft over the past 2 years," Alex continued. "Someone with access to company accounts has been stealing money through fake vendor payments and falsified invoices." "How much money are we talking about?" asked board member Robert Hayes. "Approximately $2.8 million. The number was significantly lower than what Raina had calculated, but she understood Alex's strategy. He was presenting a partial picture of the theft, enough to justify action, but not enough to reveal the full scope of his crimes. "Who has access to authorize these kinds of payments?" Margaret asked. Alex hesitated, as if reluctant to answer. "As CEO, Ethan has the authority to approve vendor payments up to $50,000. Most of these transactions fall just under that threshold." The implication was clear, and Raina saw the board members looking at Ethan with suspicion. Alex was setting him up perfectly, presenting himself as the loyal partner who discovered his colleague's betrayal. "That's an interesting theory," Ethan said, standing up. "But I think the board deserves to hear the whole story." "Ethan," Alex said, his voice filled with false concern, "I know this is difficult, but we need to tell the truth," Ethan interrupted. "Raina, would you please show the board what we discovered?" Raina stepped forward and connected her laptop to the projector. The screen filled with financial records, email logs, and transaction histories that painted a very different picture than the one Alex had presented. "Ladies and gentlemen," Raina began, My name is Raina Cole and I'm a forensic data analyst. Mr. Locke asked me to investigate these financial irregularities, and what I found is far more complex than what you've been shown. She clicked through the presentation showing the pattern of fake companies, offshore accounts, and systematically altered records. The board members listened intently as she explained how the theft had been orchestrated. The actual amount stolen is closer to $6 million, Raina said. And the evidence shows that the theft was carried out by someone with intimate knowledge of the company's systems and procedures. This is absurd, Alex said, but his voice lacked conviction. Where did you get this information? From your own computer, Raina replied. Including the deleted emails that you thought were permanently erased. She displayed one of the recovered emails on the screen, the message from Alex to the fake Robert Chen about accelerating the timeline. The board members read it in stunned silence. This email was sent from your company account, Raina continued, to a fake email address that you created. Robert Chen doesn't exist. Richmond Consulting doesn't exist. They're all part of an elaborate scheme to embezzle money from Locke Technologies. Alex's face had gone pale, but he fought back. This is clearly fabricated. Anyone can create fake emails. Ethan is trying to frame me for his own crimes. Then explain this, Raina said, displaying the access logs. These records show that you've been accessing and altering financial documents all morning, deleting records and changing transaction histories. Why would you do that if you were innocent? I was trying to preserve evidence. By destroying it? Ethan stood up, his voice filled with barely controlled anger. Alex, I trusted you. We built this company together. How could you steal from us? How could you try to kill me? Kill you? Alex's voice cracked. What are you talking about? My car accident wasn't an accident. Someone cut my brake lines. The board members looked shocked. Margaret Foster leaned forward. Are you saying someone attempted to murder you? I'm saying someone sabotaged my car to prevent me from exposing this theft, Ethan replied. And when that failed, they called this emergency board meeting to try to frame me instead. Alex stood up abruptly. This is insane. You're all insane. I'm not going to sit here and listen to these accusations. Sit down, Alex, Margaret said firmly. We're not finished. Yes, we are. Alex grabbed his laptop and headed for the door. I'm calling my lawyer. Jerome locked down your access to the financial systems, Raina called after him. You can't delete any more evidence. Alex stopped at the door, his hand on the handle. For a moment he looked like a trapped animal, desperate and dangerous. Then his mask slipped completely. You have no idea what you're interfering with, he said, his voice cold and threatening. This is bigger than just Locke Technologies. There are people involved who don't like to be crossed. What people? Ethan asked. But Alex was already gone, leaving the boardroom in stunned silence. Margaret Foster was the first to speak. We need to call the police immediately. Already on it, Raina said, pulling out her phone. But we need to make sure Alex doesn't destroy any more evidence or flee the country. As she dialed 911, Ethan walked to the window and looked out at the parking garage. There, he said, pointing. Alex is getting into his car. They watched as Alex's silver BMW pulled out of the garage and disappeared into traffic. Raina finished her call to the police and turned to the board members. The police are on their way, she said. But Alex has a head start. If he's planning to run, he might be gone before they can arrest him. What about the money? Asked Robert Hayes. Can we recover it? Some of it, Raina replied. The offshore accounts are harder to trace, but we have evidence of the transactions. With time, we can probably recover a significant portion of the stolen funds. Margaret Foster looked at Ethan. I owe you an apology. When Alex presented his evidence, I was prepared to believe that you were responsible for the theft. He's very convincing, Ethan said. He had me fooled for 8 years. What happens now? Asked another board member. Now we let the police do their job, Raina said. And we start the process of rebuilding the company. But even as she spoke, Raina felt uneasy. Alex's parting words echoed in her mind. There are people involved who don't like to be crossed. The theft might have been just the beginning of something larger and more dangerous. An hour later, the police had arrived and taken statements from everyone present. Detective Maria Santos, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, seemed particularly interested in the evidence Raina had gathered. This is excellent work, Detective Santos told her. But I have to ask, are you sure Alex Martinez is acting alone? What do you mean? Embezzling $6 million is one thing. Attempting murder is another. That's a significant escalation, and it suggests he might be under pressure from someone else. Raina nodded. He mentioned the Patterson Group in his emails. They're the company that wants to buy Lock Technologies. We'll investigate that connection, Detective Santos said. In the meantime, I want you both to be careful. If Alex is desperate enough to try to kill once, he might try again. As the police finished their work and the board members left, Ethan and Raina found themselves alone in the conference room. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving them both exhausted. What now? Ethan asked. Now we wait, Raina said. The police will hunt for Alex and we'll work on recovering the stolen money. But it's going to take time. I can't believe it's over. It's not over, Raina said quietly. Alex is still out there and he's desperate. Desperate people do unpredictable things. As if summoned by her words, Ethan's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and frowned. It's Alex. Don't answer it, Raina warned. But Ethan was already sliding his finger across the screen. Alex. Ethan, we need to talk. I think we've said everything we need to say. No, we haven't. You don't understand what you've done. You've put both of us in danger. What are you talking about? Meet me at the warehouse on Harbor Street. Come alone and don't bring the police. If you do, people are going to get hurt. Alex. The line went dead. Ethan stared at his phone, his face pale. What did he say? Raina asked. He wants to meet. He says we're both in danger. It's a trap. Probably. But what if he's telling the truth? What if there are other people involved? Raina studied his face. You're thinking about going, aren't you? I have to know the truth. Then we're going together. He said to come alone. I don't care what he said. I'm not letting you face him alone. Ethan looked into her eyes and saw the same determination that had made her pull him from a burning car. Okay, he said. But we're calling Detective Santos first. Agreed. But Ethan? Yeah. Whatever happens, we stick together. No matter what Alex says, no matter what he threatens, we don't separate. I wouldn't have it any other way. As they prepared to leave the office, neither of them noticed the figure watching from the parking garage, a man in a dark jacket who'd been waiting for them to make their next move. The warehouse on Harbor Street sat in the industrial district, surrounded by empty lots and abandoned buildings. It was exactly the kind of place where someone might go to have a conversation they didn't want overheard or to make someone disappear. Raina and Ethan sat in her car 2 blocks away, watching the building through binoculars while they waited for Detective Santos and her backup team to get into position. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the deserted street, and the only sounds were the distant hum of traffic and the occasional cry of seagulls from the nearby harbor. Second thoughts? Raina asked, lowering her binoculars. About 100 of them, Ethan replied. But we need to know what Alex meant about other people being involved. He could be lying. Trying to manipulate us one more time. Maybe. But his voice on the phone, he sounded scared. Really scared. Raina's radio crackled to life. This is Detective Santos. We're in position. Remember, your job is to get him talking. We'll handle the rest. Copy that, Raina replied. She looked at Ethan. Ready? As ready as I'll ever be. They got out of the car and walked toward the warehouse, their footsteps echoing in the empty street. The building was old and weathered, with broken windows and graffiti covering the walls. A sign by the entrance read Hartwell Storage for Lease. The main door was unlocked. They pushed it open and stepped into a vast, dimly lit space filled with shadows and the smell of dust and decay. Their footsteps echoed in the emptiness as they made their way deeper into the building. Alex. Ethan called out. We're here. Over here, came a voice from the far end of the warehouse. They found Alex sitting on a wooden crate, his expensive suit rumpled and his face haggard. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past few hours. When he saw them, he stood up slowly, his hands visible and empty. Thank you for coming, he said, his voice hoarse. What do you want, Alex? Ethan asked. I want to explain. I want you to understand why I did what I did. You mean why you stole $6 million? Why you tried to kill me? Alex flinched. I never wanted to hurt you. That was never part of the plan. Whose plan? Raina asked, stepping forward. Who else is involved? Alex looked at her with a mixture of fear and resignation. You really don't know, do you? You think this is just about embezzlement. Then tell us what it's really about. Alex ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Ethan recognized from years of working together. 3 years ago I got into trouble. Gambling debts. Bad investments. I owed money to people who don't take no for an answer. So you started stealing from the company, Ethan said. I started borrowing from the company. I was going to pay it back, I swear. But then the debts kept growing and the people I owed money to started making threats. What kind of threats? The kind that involve your family disappearing. Alex's voice was barely above a whisper. They said if I didn't pay up, they'd hurt my sister, my nephew. So I took more money and more until I was in so deep I couldn't see a way out. Raina felt a chill run down her spine. Who are these people? They call themselves investors, but they're really loan sharks. High-end loan sharks who lend money to people like me, people with access to large amounts of cash. And the Patterson Group? Alex laughed bitterly. The Patterson Group is their front company. They've been pressuring me to push through the sale so they can get their money back with interest. How much interest? $12 million. Double what I borrowed. Ethan stared at his former partner. So you were going to sell our company to pay off your gambling debts? I was going to save both our lives. These people don't just want money, Ethan. They want control. If the sale goes through, they'll have a legitimate business to launder money through. If it doesn't, he trailed off. If it doesn't, they'll kill us, Raina finished. They'll kill everyone who knows about their operation. You, me, anyone who can connect them to the theft. The warehouse fell silent except for the distant sound of traffic. Raina's mind was racing, trying to process this new information. What they thought was a simple embezzlement case had turned into something much more dangerous. Why didn't you tell me? Ethan asked. We could have found another way. What other way? Go to the police? These people have connections everywhere. They know judges, prosecutors, cops. They've been operating for years without getting caught. So you decided to frame me instead? Alex's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. They said if I could make it look like you were the one stealing, they'd protect me. But when you started getting too close to the truth, they told me to eliminate you. And you agreed? I hired someone to sabotage your car. I thought it would look like an accident and you'd be out of the way without getting hurt. Alex's voice broke. I never thought it would actually kill you. But it almost did, Raina said angrily. If I hadn't been there. I know. Alex shouted. I know, and I've been sick about it ever since. That's why I called you. I can't live with this anymore. So what do you want from us? I want to make this right. I want to help you stop them. Ethan studied his former partner's face. How? I have records. Names, bank accounts, meeting locations. Everything I know about their operation. In exchange for what? Protection. For me and my family. These people will kill us all if they find out I'm talking to you. Raina touched the radio in her pocket, considering whether to signal Detective Santos. But something Alex had said made her hesitate. You said they have connections in law enforcement, she said. How do we know we can trust the police? We don't, Alex replied. But what choice do we have? Before anyone could answer, they heard the sound of car engines outside. Multiple vehicles approaching fast. Did you call the police? Alex asked, his face going pale. Yes, Ethan said. Detective Santos is. No. Alex was backing away, his eyes wide with terror. Those aren't police cars. Listen to the engines. Raina listened and realized he was right. The vehicles approaching were powerful and expensive, not standard police cruisers. And there were too many of them. We need to get out of here, she said, grabbing Ethan's arm. There's a back exit, Alex said, pointing toward the rear of the warehouse. But they'll have people there too. Then we go up, Raina said, spotting a rusted fire escape ladder that led to a second-floor office. Move. They ran toward the ladder as the front doors of the warehouse burst open. Men in dark suits poured in, and Raina caught a glimpse of weapons in their hands. Go, 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 she shouted, pushing Ethan toward the ladder. Alex was behind them, his expensive shoes slipping on the metal rungs. They found us, he gasped. I don't know how, but they found us. They reached the second floor just as the men below spotted them. Raina heard shouting and the sound of footsteps on the warehouse floor. This way, Alex said, leading them through a maze of abandoned offices. There's a fire escape on the other side of the building. They ran through the darkness, their footsteps echoing in the empty rooms. Behind them, they could hear their pursuers climbing the ladder, getting closer. There. Alex pointed to a window with a fire escape visible outside. But as they approached, they saw men in dark clothing climbing up from below. They're everywhere, Ethan said, his voice tight with fear. Raina looked around the abandoned office, her mind racing. Years of self-defense training had taught her to stay calm under pressure, but this was beyond anything she'd experienced. 3 people against how many armed men? The roof, she said suddenly. We go up to the roof. And then what? Alex asked. Then we figure out our next move. They found a maintenance ladder that led to a rooftop access door. The metal was rusted, but it still moved. They climbed up into the fading daylight, the sounds of pursuit echoing below them. The warehouse roof was flat and covered with gravel, offering little cover. In the distance, Raina could see the harbor and the lights of the city beginning to twinkle in the evening gloom. "Over there," Ethan said, pointing to an adjacent building. "We can jump to that roof." "Are you crazy?" Alex said. "It's got to be 15 feet. "It's better than staying here," Raina replied. She looked at the gap between buildings. It was wide, but not impossible if they got a running start. The sound of the rooftop door opening behind them made the decision for them. 3 men in dark suits emerged, and Raina saw the glint of weapons in their hands. "Go," she shouted. Ethan ran first, his feet pounding on the gravel as he sprinted toward the edge of the building. He leaped, his arms windmilling as he sailed through the air. He landed hard on the adjacent roof, rolling to absorb the impact. "Your turn," Raina said to Alex. "I can't." "You can. Run." Alex closed his eyes and ran, his terror giving him speed. He barely made it, landing awkwardly but safely on the other side. Raina was about to follow when she heard a voice behind her. "Stop right there." She turned to see a man pointing a gun at her. He was tall and lean, with cold eyes and a face that looked like it had seen too much violence. "You're coming with us," he said. "I don't think so," Raina replied, her hand moving slowly toward the tactical knife she kept on her belt. "Don't even think about it. You're outnumbered and outgunned." "Maybe. But I'm not going down without a fight." The man smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I was hoping you'd say that." He raised his weapon, but Raina was already moving. She dove to the side, rolling behind a ventilation unit as the gun fired. The bullet sparked off the metal inches from her head. "Raina." Ethan's voice came from the other building. "Stay back," she shouted. "Don't come back for me." But even as she said it, she knew Ethan wouldn't listen. He was already looking for a way back across the gap. The gunman was moving toward her hiding spot, his weapon trained on the ventilation unit. Raina gripped her knife and waited for her chance. "Come out," the man called. "Make this easy on yourself." "Easy was never my style," Raina replied. She heard his footsteps on the gravel, getting closer. When he rounded the corner of the ventilation unit, she was ready. She lunged forward, her knife aimed at his weapon hand. He was faster than she expected, but not fast enough. The blade caught his wrist and he dropped the gun with a curse. Raina rolled away, coming up in a fighting stance. "You're going to regret that," the man said, pulling out a second weapon. But before he could use it, there was a shout from the other side of the roof. Detective Santos and her team had finally arrived, their own weapons drawn. "Police, drop your weapons." The gunman hesitated, looking between Raina and the approaching officers. Then he made a decision that surprised everyone. He turned and ran toward the edge of the building. "He's going to jump," Raina shouted. But the man didn't jump. Instead, he rappelled down the side of the building using a rope that had been hidden behind another ventilation unit. Within seconds he was gone. Detective Santos reached Raina, her face grim. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine. But there are more of them. At least 2 other men, maybe more. We'll search the building." "Where are Mr. Locke and Martinez?" Raina pointed to the adjacent building. "Over there. They're safe for now." As the police secured the warehouse, Raina found herself thinking about what Alex had told them. If he was telling the truth, they weren't just dealing with embezzlement anymore. They were dealing with organized crime, people who had the resources and connections to make them all disappear. An hour later, they were back at the police station, giving statements and trying to make sense of what had happened. Alex had provided Detective Santos with a detailed account of his dealings with the loan sharks, including names, locations, and bank account numbers. "This is bigger than we thought," Detective Santos admitted. "These people have been operating for years, using legitimate businesses as fronts for money laundering and extortion." "What about the Patterson Group?" Ethan asked. "We're investigating, but it's going to take time. Companies like this are experts at covering their tracks." "And in the meantime?" Raina asked. "In the meantime, you're all in danger. I'm arranging for protection, but I can't guarantee your safety indefinitely." As they left the police station, Ethan and Raina found themselves alone in the parking lot. The evening air was cool, and the stress of the day was finally catching up with them. "I'm sorry," Ethan said quietly. "For what?" "For getting you involved in this. When I told you about the embezzlement, I had no idea it would lead to this." Raina looked at him, seeing the guilt and fear in his eyes. "You didn't get me involved. I chose to help you. You could have been killed today. But I wasn't." We both made it out alive. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of what they'd been through settling between them. Then Ethan spoke again. What happens now? Now we find somewhere safe to stay while the police do their job. And we figure out how to rebuild your company. Our company, Ethan corrected. I want you to stay, Raina. As head of security and internal affairs. After what you've done, I can't imagine running the company without you. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership. In every sense of the word. Raina felt something shift inside her chest. Over the past few days, she'd found herself caring about Ethan in a way that went beyond professional interest. He was kind, intelligent, and brave, and he trusted her with his life. I'd like that, she said softly. Good. Because I have a feeling we're going to need each other for what's coming next. As they walked to her car, neither of them noticed the figure watching from across the street, a man in a dark jacket who'd been following them since they left the warehouse. The people Alex owed money to weren't done with them yet. The safe house was a nondescript apartment in a middle-class neighborhood, the kind of place that blended into the background. Detective Santos had arranged for them to stay there while the police investigated the loan shark operation, but Raina knew it was only a temporary solution. She sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, going through the financial records Alex had provided. Ethan was across from her, making notes on a legal pad, while Alex himself sat in the living room, staring out the window with the hollow expression of a man who'd lost everything. Look at this, Raina said, pointing to her screen. The Patterson Group has been involved in at least 6 other acquisitions over the past 2 years. All of them were companies whose owners had borrowed money from the same loan sharks. A pattern, Ethan observed. More than that. It's a business model. They target successful business owners, get them into debt, then force them to sell their companies at below market prices. And if the owners refuse? Then they have accidents. Or their families do. Ethan leaned back in his chair. We need to stop them. The police are working on it, but these people have been operating for years. They know how to cover their tracks. What about the other victims? The other business owners who were forced to sell? Raina pulled up another file. I found records of 3 other companies that were acquired under similar circumstances. The owners are all still alive, but they're not talking. They're too scared. Can you blame them? No. But we need their testimony if we're going to build a case. Alex appeared in the doorway, his face gaunt. You're wasting your time. These people are untouchable. Nothing is untouchable, Raina replied. Every criminal organization has weaknesses. What do you suggest? We give them what they want. Ethan looked up sharply. What do you mean? We agree to sell the company to the Patterson Group. But we do it on our terms, with conditions that will expose their operation. That's insane, Alex said. They'll kill us as soon as the sale goes through. Not if we're smart about it. We set up the sale as a trap, with law enforcement ready to move in when they make their next move. Ethan studied her face. What kind of trap? We agreed to meet with them to finalize the sale. But we insist on cash payment, all $12 million in untraceable bills. That much cash will be hard to move discreetly. And we make sure the police are watching when they try to transport it. Money laundering on that scale requires infrastructure vehicles, safe houses, people to count and package the cash. If we can catch them in the act, we can bring down the entire operation. What if they suspect it's a trap? Then we make sure they don't suspect. We play our parts, perfectly scared victims who just want to get out alive. Alex shook his head. You don't understand these people. They're not stupid. They've been doing this for years. Then we'll have to be smarter than them. That evening, Detective Santos arrived at the safe house to discuss the plan. She listened carefully as Raina explained her proposal, her expression growing more concerned with each detail. It's risky, she said finally. If something goes wrong, you could all end up dead. If we don't try, we'll spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders, Ethan replied. And they'll just find other victims. What do you need from us? Surveillance teams, recording equipment, and backup units positioned around the meeting location. We'll need to be able to track their movements and identify their associates. And if they try to kill you during the meeting? Then you'll be there to stop them. Detective Santos was quiet for a long moment. I'll need to clear this with my superiors. An operation this size requires federal involvement. How long will that take? A few days. Maybe a week. We don't have a week, Alex said. They're already suspicious. If we wait too long, they'll disappear. Then we'd better work fast, Raina said. The next morning, Ethan made the call from a secure phone line the police had provided. The number Alex had given them connected to a voicemail system with a generic greeting. "This is Ethan Locke," he said after the beep. "I'm ready to discuss the sale of Locke Technologies. I want to meet with your people as soon as possible." The response came 2 hours later. A man with a smooth voice and a slight accent called back. "Mr. Locke, I'm glad you've come to your senses. We can meet this afternoon to discuss the terms." "I want to do this right," Ethan said, following the script they'd prepared. "Full cash payment, no banks involved. Can you arrange that?" "Of course. $12 million as agreed. We'll meet at the Harborview restaurant at 3 o'clock. Just me and Alex? And one representative from our side. Keep it simple." After he hung up, Ethan looked at Raina. "They agreed to the cash payment. They're not suspicious. Or they're better actors than we are," Alex said nervously. "Either way, we're committed now." They spent the rest of the morning preparing. Detective Santos briefed them on the surveillance equipment. They'd be wearing tiny cameras and microphones that would record everything. FBI agents would be positioned around the restaurant, ready to move in if things went wrong. "Remember," Detective Santos said, "your job is to get them talking. We need them to admit their involvement in the extortion scheme on tape." "What if they don't confess?" Ethan asked. "Then we'll have to find another way to build a case. But this is our best chance to get the evidence we need." The Harborview restaurant was an upscale establishment with a view of the marina. Ethan and Alex arrived first, taking a table by the window where they could see the parking lot. Both men were nervous, but they tried to act normal. "There," Alex said, nodding toward the entrance. "That's him." A well-dressed man in his 50s approached their table. He was tall and distinguished, with silver hair and expensive clothes. He looked more like a successful businessman than a criminal. "Mr. Locke, Mr. Martinez?" he said, extending his hand. "I'm Vincent Caruso. Thank you for agreeing to meet." "Thank you for being flexible about the payment terms," Ethan replied. Caruso sat down and ordered a drink. "I understand you're ready to finalize the sale." "We are. But I need to know exactly what we're agreeing to." "The terms are simple. You sell Locke Technologies to the Patterson Group for $12 million. In exchange, Mr. Martinez's debts are forgiven, and you both walk away with clean records." "And if we refuse?" Caruso's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I don't think you want to refuse. You've seen what happens to people who don't cooperate. Are you threatening us?" "I'm stating facts. Your car accident was a warning, Mr. Locke. The next one won't be so survivable." Ethan felt his pulse quicken. The man was confessing to attempted murder on tape. "So you admit you sabotaged my car?" "I admit that accidents happen to people who don't listen to reason." "What about the other business owners? The ones who were forced to sell their companies?" Caruso's expression hardened. "You're asking a lot of questions for someone who's supposed to be signing papers. I just want to understand the full scope of what we're dealing with." "The scope is simple. You give us what we want and you get to keep breathing. It's a good deal." Alex leaned forward. "What about my family? How do I know they'll be safe?" "As long as you keep your mouth shut and stay out of our business, your family will be fine. But if you ever think about going to the police..." "What? You'll kill them?" "I'll kill everyone you've ever cared about. Starting with that woman who's been helping you." Ethan's blood ran cold. "What woman?" "Raina Cole. The forensic analyst who's been sticking her nose where it doesn't belong. She's become a problem. You leave her out of this. That's not up to you anymore. She knows too much and she's too dangerous to let live." Ethan started to stand, but Caruso held up a hand. "Sit down. We're not finished." "Yes, we are," Ethan said. "This meeting is over. You're making a mistake, Mr. Locke. A very expensive mistake." "Maybe. But I'm not going to let you hurt innocent people." Caruso's facade of politeness finally cracked. "You stupid fool. You have no idea what you're up against. We've been doing this for 20 years. We have judges, prosecutors, and police officers on our payroll. You think you can bring us down with a few tape recordings? I think you just told us everything we need to know. And I think you're about to find out how we deal with people who cross us." Caruso stood up and walked away, leaving Ethan and Alex alone at the table. Within minutes, Detective Santos and her team were moving in, but Caruso had already disappeared into the crowd. "Did you get all that?" Ethan asked, touching the microphone hidden in his jacket. "Every word," came the reply through his earpiece. "Now we need to get you both to safety." If Caruso meant what he said about Raina? Ethan was already running toward the exit, his heart pounding with fear. They had their confession, but at what cost? If something happened to Raina because of his plan, he'd never forgive himself. The safe house was supposed to be secure, but when Ethan and Alex arrived with their police escort, they found the front door standing open. Detective Santos drew her weapon and signaled for backup while Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. "Raina," he called out, but there was no response. They found signs of a struggle in the living room: overturned furniture, broken glass, and Raina's laptop smashed on the floor. But there was no blood, which Detective Santos said was a good sign. "They took her alive," she said, examining the scene. "That means they want something from her." "What could they want?" Ethan asked, his voice tight with fear. "Information. They want to know what she's found, who she's talked to, what evidence she has. We have to find her." "We will. But first, we need to figure out where they would take her." Alex was studying the broken laptop. "There's a message here," he said, written in the dust on the screen. Ethan looked closer and saw letters traced in the layer of dust. "Pier 47. That's at the old shipping district," Detective Santos said. "About 20 minutes from here." "It's a trap," Alex said. "They want us to come after her." "Of course it's a trap," Ethan replied. "But we're going anyway." "Ethan, think about this. If we walk into their trap, we're all dead. If we don't, Raina's dead. I'm not leaving her." Detective Santos holstered her weapon. "Neither am I. But we do this smart. Full tactical team, snipers, the works. If they want a fight, we'll give them one." An hour later, they were positioned around Pier 47, a long wooden structure that extended into the harbor. The area was industrial and isolated, perfect for the kind of meeting that left no witnesses. Through binoculars, Ethan could see a black SUV parked at the end of the pier, but no sign of Raina or her captors. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the water. "Movement," reported one of the snipers. "Two men coming out of the vehicle." Ethan saw them too, the same men who'd chased them through the warehouse. They were armed and alert, scanning the area for any sign of pursuit. "Where's Raina?" Detective Santos said into her radio. "Still in the vehicle, I think. Can't get a clear visual." Ethan's phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number. "That's probably them," Detective Santos said. "Answer it, but keep them talking." "Hello? Mr. Locke." It was Caruso's voice, smooth and confident. "I see you got our message. Where is she?" "Safe. For now. But that could change very quickly. What do you want?" "I want you to come to the pier. Alone. No police, no backup, no weapons. Just you and Mr. Martinez. And if I refuse? Then Miss Cole will have a very unpleasant evening. I'm sure you can imagine what I mean." Ethan felt sick. "How do I know she's alive?" "Because I'm going to let you talk to her. But first, you need to dismiss your police friends. I know they're out there." "I can't do that." "You can, and you will. Because if I see one police officer on that pier, I'll put a bullet in Miss Cole's head." The line went quiet for a moment, then Raina's voice came through the phone. "Ethan? Raina. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. But don't listen to him. This is exactly what he wants. He's going to kill us all anyway." "Enough," Caruso's voice cut in. "You have 10 minutes to get to the pier. Come alone or she dies." The line went dead. Ethan stared at the phone, his mind racing. "I have to go," he said. "Absolutely not," Detective Santos replied. "It's suicide. He'll kill her if I don't. He'll kill you both if you do. These people don't leave witnesses." "Then what do you suggest?" Detective Santos was quiet for a moment, studying the pier through her binoculars. "There might be a way. But it's risky." "Tell me." "We have a sniper with a clear shot at the vehicle. If we can get Raina away from her captors, even for a few seconds, we can take them out." "How do we get her away from them?" "You create a distraction. Go to the meeting but wear a wire and a tracking device. Keep them talking while we get into position." "What kind of distraction?" "Tell them you want to verify that Raina is alive before you agree to anything. Make them bring her out of the vehicle." Ethan looked at the pier, measuring the distance and the angles. "What if they don't buy it? Then we'll have to try something else. But this is our best chance." Alex stepped forward. "I'm going with you." "No," Ethan said. "This is my fault. I'm not putting you in more danger. It's my fault too. I'm the one who got involved with these people in the first place." "Alex, I'm going. Don't argue with me." 20 minutes later, Ethan and Alex were walking down the pier, the setting sun casting their shadows long across the weathered boards. The ocean breeze was cool, carrying the scent of salt and seaweed. The black SUV sat at the end of the pier, its windows tinted dark. As they approached, two men emerged from the vehicle, their hands resting on concealed weapons. "That's close enough," one of them called out. "Where's Raina?" Ethan asked. "Safe. But not for long." The passenger door of the SUV opened and Caruso stepped out. He was wearing the same expensive suit from the restaurant, but his demeanor was different now, colder, more predatory. "Mr. Locke. Mr. Martinez. Thank you for coming. We're here. Now let her go. All in good time. First, we need to discuss the terms of your surrender." "Surrender? You're going to sign over Locke Technologies to the Patterson Group. You're going to transfer all your assets to our accounts. And then you're going to disappear. And if we refuse? Then you'll disappear anyway. But it won't be pleasant." Ethan took a step forward. "I want to see Raina first. I want to know she's alive." "You spoke to her on the phone. That was 20 minutes ago. Bring her out." Caruso smiled. "You're in no position to make demands. I'm not signing anything until I see her." "Fine." Caruso nodded to one of his men, who opened the rear door of the SUV. Raina emerged, her hands bound behind her back but otherwise unharmed. Her eyes met Ethan's, and he saw the same determination there that had made her pull him from a burning car. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "I'm fine. But this is a trap, Ethan. They're going to kill us all." "Shut up," one of the men said, pressing a gun to her back. "She's right, you know," Caruso said. "This is a trap. But not the kind you think." "What do you mean?" "I mean the police aren't coming to save you. Half the cops in this city are on our payroll." "You're Detective Santos?" "She's been feeding us information all along." Ethan's blood ran cold. "You're lying." "Am I? How do you think we found the safe house? How do you think we knew about your plan? The recording from the restaurant will disappear just like the evidence from your car accident. Just like the financial records from your company. Just like you." Ethan felt the weight of despair settling on his shoulders. If Caruso was telling the truth, then they were truly alone. But then he noticed something. Raina was moving her hands behind her back, working at the ropes that bound her wrists. She caught his eye and nodded slightly toward the water. "What about the other business owners?" Ethan asked, trying to keep Caruso talking. "The ones you forced to sell? What about them? They're still alive. They could testify against you." "No, they couldn't. They're all dead." "What?" "Car accidents. Suicides. Heart attacks. Amazing how many successful businessmen have fatal accidents after they retire." Caruso was enjoying himself now, revealing the full scope of his operation. "We've been doing this for 20 years, Mr. Locke. 20 years of perfect crimes, untraceable deaths, and profitable acquisitions. You're just the latest in a long line." Raina's hands came free. She caught Ethan's eye again and mouthed the word "now." "You know what I don't understand?" Ethan said, taking a step closer to Caruso. "How someone like you sleeps at night." "Very well, actually. On silk sheets in a mansion in the Caribbean." "And you're not worried about karma? About justice?" "Justice is a luxury for people who can afford it. People like you." Raina moved. She spun away from her captor, elbowing him in the stomach and diving toward the edge of the pier. The man with the gun tried to follow her, but she was already in the water. "Kill them," Caruso shouted. "Kill them all." But even as the words left his mouth, the night exploded with gunfire. Detective Santos and her team had been watching from concealed positions, waiting for their moment. The corrupt cops Caruso had bragged about were nowhere to be seen. Ethan dove behind a wooden post as bullets flew over his head. Alex wasn't as lucky. He cried out and fell to the pier, blood spreading across his shirt. "Alex." Ethan crawled toward his fallen partner as the gunfight raged around them. "I'm okay," Alex gasped. "Just a graze." One of Caruso's men was down, taken out by a police sniper. The other was pinned behind the SUV, returning fire. Caruso himself was trying to reach the vehicle, but Detective Santos and her team had him surrounded. "This is over, Caruso," Detective Santos shouted. "Surrender now. Go to hell." Caruso raised his weapon, but before he could fire, there was a splash from the water below the pier. Raina hauled herself up onto the pier behind Caruso, dripping wet but very much alive. She had something in her hand, a piece of driftwood that she brought down hard on Caruso's head. He collapsed unconscious. "That's for kidnapping me," she said, standing over his still form. The gunfight ended as suddenly as it had begun. The remaining gunman threw down his weapon and surrendered. Detective Santos and her team moved in to secure the scene. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked, running to Raina. "I'm fine. Just wet." She looked at Alex, who was sitting up despite his wound. How bad is it? I'll live, Alex said. But I think I'm done with the criminal life. Good choice. As the paramedics arrived to treat Alex's wound, Detective Santos approached them. We got him, she said. Caruso and his entire organization. The recordings from tonight, combined with the evidence you gathered, should be enough to put them away for life. What about the corrupt cops he mentioned? Ethan asked. There were a few. But not as many as he claimed. Most of the police force is clean. So it's really over? It's over. You can go back to your lives. Ethan looked at Raina, who was wringing water out of her hair. What do you think? Ready to go back to normal? Normal is overrated, she said with a smile. But I'm ready for whatever comes next. 3 days later, Ethan stood in the conference room at Locke Technologies, looking out at the city through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The building felt different now, safer, somehow, even though he knew it would take time to rebuild what Alex and Caruso had destroyed. Raina entered carrying 2 cups of coffee and a stack of documents. She traded her wet clothes for a crisp business suit, but Ethan could still see the small bandage on her forehead from her encounter with Caruso's men. The FBI finished their analysis, she said, setting one of the cups in front of him. They found evidence linking the Patterson Group to at least 12 other acquisitions over the past 5 years. How many victims? 43 business owners. All of them forced to sell their companies at below-market prices. And you were right about the deaths. 7 of them died in accidents, after they tried to resist. Ethan felt sick. 7 people died because of this. 7 people died because Vincent Caruso is a monster. That's not on you, isn't it? If I'd been more careful with the company finances, if I'd paid more attention to what Alex was doing, then you might have been victim number 8. Raina sat down across from him. You can't blame yourself for trusting someone you considered a friend. Some friend. He saved your life in the end. He could have stayed quiet, let Caruso kill us all. But he chose to help. Ethan nodded. Alex was recovering from his gunshot wound in a federal facility, cooperating with the FBI's investigation in exchange for a reduced sentence. He'd faced jail time for his part in the embezzlement, but not the life sentence that Caruso was looking at. What about the money? Ethan asked. The FBI has frozen all of Caruso's accounts. We'll eventually recover most of what was stolen, but it'll take time. In the meantime, the company needs to restructure. Which brings us to my offer, Ethan said. Head of Security and Internal Affairs. Full partnership. Are you interested? Raina smiled. I'm interested. But I have some conditions. Such as? I want to create a new division, corporate investigations. Help other companies avoid what happened to us. I like it. What else? I want to set up a foundation. Use some of the recovered money to help other victims of corporate crime. Done. Anything else? I want you to take me to dinner. Somewhere nice. Somewhere that doesn't involve anyone shooting at us. Ethan laughed for the first time in days. That can be arranged. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock on the door. Sarah entered looking nervous. I'm sorry to bother you, she said. But there's someone here to see you. He says it's about Alex. Who is it? He won't give his name. But he says it's urgent. Ethan and Raina exchanged glances. Send him in, Ethan said. The man who entered was tall and lean, with prematurely gray hair and the kind of weathered face that spoke of years in law enforcement. He was wearing a rumpled suit and carrying a briefcase. Mr. Locke? Miss Cole? I'm Agent Harrison, FBI. I'm sorry to bother you, but we have a problem. What kind of problem? Raina asked. Vincent Caruso escaped from federal custody this morning. The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. How is that possible? He had help. Someone inside the system, we're not sure who yet. But he's gone, and we have reason to believe he's coming for you. What kind of reason? Agent Harrison opened his briefcase and pulled out a photograph. It showed Ethan and Raina leaving the police station 3 days earlier, but there were red X marks drawn over their faces. We found this in his cell, Agent Harrison said. Along with this. He handed them a handwritten note in block letters. They destroyed my life. Now I destroy theirs. He's not just angry, Raina said. He's obsessed. Which makes him extremely dangerous. We're putting you both in protective custody until we can find him. For how long? Ethan asked. However long it takes. This man has nothing left to lose, and he blames you for taking everything from him. What about the company? The employees? We'll provide security for the building, but you two are the primary targets. He wants revenge. Ethan looked at Raina. I can't ask you to go into hiding because of me. You're not asking. I'm choosing. We're in this together. This isn't what you signed up for when you agreed to help me. Maybe not. But it's what I'm choosing now. Agent Harrison cleared his throat. We need to move quickly. Caruso has been free for 6 hours already. He could be anywhere. Where would you take us? Reina asked. Safe house outside the city. Remote location, full security team. You'll be comfortable, but you won't be able to leave until we catch him. And if you don't catch him? We will. But it might take time. As they prepared to leave, Ethan found himself thinking about how much his life had changed in just a few weeks. A month ago, he'd been a successful CEO with a thriving company and a trusted partner. Now his partner was in prison, his company was under investigation, and he was running for his life. But he wasn't alone. Reina was beside him, and for the first time in years, he felt like he had someone he could truly count on. The safe house was a cabin in the mountains, surrounded by tall trees and accessible only by a single winding road. Agent Harrison's team had set up a perimeter with motion sensors and cameras, but the isolation was both comforting and unsettling. It's beautiful, Reina said, looking out at the view from the cabin's main window. It's also the middle of nowhere, Ethan replied. If something goes wrong, nothing's going to go wrong. The FBI knows what they're doing. I hope you're right. That evening they sat by the fireplace trying to process everything that had happened. The FBI agents were outside maintaining their watch, but inside the cabin, it was just the two of them. Can I ask you something? Ethan said. Of course. Why did you really help me? I mean the real reason. Reina was quiet for a moment, staring into the fire. Because I recognized something in you. The same thing I felt when those men broke into my apartment in college. What's that? The feeling of being alone against something bigger than yourself. I spent years learning to fight back, to never be helpless again. But I realized that fighting back doesn't always mean being alone. Sometimes it means finding someone worth fighting for. Exactly. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the flames dance. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, and somewhere in the distance an owl called. Ethan? Yeah. When this is over, when Caruso is caught and we're safe, what happens then? Then we build something new. The company, the foundation, whatever we want. Together. Together? If you want to. I know I'm not the easiest person to be around. I have trust issues and I work too much and I'm probably not the most romantic. Ethan. Yeah. Stop talking. She leaned over and kissed him, soft and gentle at first, then with more passion. When they broke apart, she was smiling. I think you're more romantic than you realize, she said. I'm out of practice. We have time to work on that. The next morning, they woke to the sound of Agent Harrison's voice outside the cabin. He was talking on his radio, his tone urgent. What's wrong? Ethan asked as they joined him on the porch. We think we found Caruso. He's holed up in a warehouse about 50 miles from here. Local police have the building surrounded. Is it over? Not yet. He's got hostages, 2 security guards from the building. He's demanding to speak with you. With me? He says he'll let the hostages go if you come to the warehouse. Alone. Reina stepped forward. Absolutely not. It's obviously a trap. Of course it's a trap. But those guards are innocent. They don't deserve to die because of me. And you don't deserve to die because of Caruso's obsession. Agent Harrison nodded. Miss Cole is right. We can't let you go in there. Then what do you suggest? We wait him out. Eventually he'll make a mistake and we'll have our chance. And if he kills the hostages while we're waiting? That's a risk we have to take. But even as Agent Harrison spoke, his radio crackled with urgent voices. Suspect is moving. He's got one of the hostages at the window. Looks like he's going to. The transmission cut off in a burst of static. We need to go, Agent Harrison said. Now. The warehouse was in an industrial district, surrounded by police cars and FBI vehicles. Through the windows they could see a figure moving inside Caruso, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. Status report, Agent Harrison said to the local commander. He's got 2 hostages, both male, both security guards. He's armed and agitated. He keeps asking for lock. What about the snipers? No clear shot. He's keeping the hostages between himself and the windows. Ethan studied the building. There's got to be another way in. We're working on it. But right now he has all the advantages. What if I called him? Tried to talk him down? Worth a try. But he's not stable. He could do anything. Agent Harrison handed Ethan a phone. The number is already programmed. But remember, don't agree to anything. Just keep him talking. Ethan dialed the number, his hands shaking slightly. The phone rang twice before Caruso answered. Ethan Locke. I was wondering when you'd call. Vincent let the hostages go. This is between us. Everything is between us now. You destroyed my life, took away everything I worked for. You destroyed your own life. I just exposed what you were doing. Semantics. The result is the same. What do you want? I want you to suffer the way I'm suffering. I want you to lose everything you care about. I'm here. Let the guards go and we can talk face to face. No. That's too easy. I want you to watch while I destroy everything you love. The line went dead. Ethan stared at the phone, a chill running down his spine. What did he say? Raina asked. He's not interested in talking. He wants revenge. Then we end this, Agent Harrison said. Tactical team, prepare for breach. But before anyone could move, there was a commotion at the warehouse. Smoke began pouring from the windows, and they could hear the sound of fire alarms. He's burning the building, someone shouted. Move in now. Agent Harrison commanded. The FBI tactical team stormed the building as fire trucks arrived. Through the chaos, Ethan saw two figures emerge from the smoke, the security guards, coughing and stumbling but alive. Where's Caruso? Agent Harrison asked them. Still inside, one of them gasped. He said he wasn't coming out. Is there another exit? Loading dock in the back. But it's locked from the inside. Agent Harrison spoke into his radio. Team 2 check the loading dock. Team 3 sweep the building. Find Caruso. But when the tactical teams finished their search, there was no sign of Vincent Caruso. The building was empty except for the fire damage and the lingering smell of smoke. He's gone, Agent Harrison said grimly. Somehow he slipped out during the chaos. How is that possible? Raina asked. This man has been planning his escape for days. He probably had contingencies we didn't think of. So what now? Now we go back to the safe house and wait. He'll surface again, and when he does, we'll be ready. But as they drove back to the mountains, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that Caruso was closer than they thought. The man had shown a talent for staying one step ahead of law enforcement, and his obsession with revenge made him unpredictable. He's not going to give up, Ethan said to Raina as they sat in the back of the FBI vehicle. I know. This could go on for months. Years. Then we'll deal with it for months or years. But we'll deal with it together. I don't want you to spend your life looking over your shoulder because of me. And I don't want you to spend your life alone because you're afraid of putting people in danger. Ethan took her hand. What if something happens to you? What if something happens to you? We can't live our lives in fear of what might happen. So what do? We live. We build the company, start the foundation, help other people. We don't let Caruso win by being afraid. And if he comes after us again? Then we'll be ready for him. As they reached the safe house, Agent Harrison's radio crackled to life. Command, we have a situation. The cabin is dark. No response from the security team. Agent Harrison grabbed his weapon. Stay in the vehicle, he told Ethan and Raina. Don't move until I give the all clear. He and his team approached the cabin cautiously, their weapons drawn. The front door was standing open, and there was no sign of the agents who should have been guarding the perimeter. Clear. Agent Harrison called out after searching the building. But our people are gone. What does that mean? Ethan asked as they joined him inside. It means Caruso found us. And it means he's not finished with his revenge. On the kitchen table they found a note written in the same block letters as before. You can't hide forever. I'll be waiting. He's playing with us, Raina said. Showing us he can get to us anywhere. Then we stop running, Ethan said. We go back to the city and face him. That's exactly what he wants. Maybe. But I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of letting him control our lives. Agent Harrison shook his head. It's too dangerous. We need to find a more secure location. No, Ethan said firmly. We end this now. We go back to Locke Technologies, we do our jobs, and we let him come to us. You're talking about using yourselves as bait. I'm talking about taking our lives back. Raina looked at him, then at Agent Harrison. He's right. We can't keep running. But we do this smart. Full security, backup plans, everything. And if Caruso kills you both? Then at least we'll die fighting instead of hiding. Agent Harrison was quiet for a long moment. I'll need to clear this with my superiors. But if we do this, we do it right. Full tactical support, round-the-clock surveillance, the works. Whatever it takes, Ethan said. Just promise me one thing, Agent Harrison said. When this is over, you'll both consider relocating. New identities, new lives. Because even if we catch Caruso, there might be others. We'll consider it, Raina said. But right now we have a company to rebuild and a criminal to catch. As they prepared to leave the safe house, Ethan realized that somewhere in the midst of all the danger and chaos, he'd found something he'd never expected, someone worth fighting for. And for the first time in his life, he was ready to fight for what he wanted instead of just protecting what he had. The confrontation with Caruso was coming, and when it did, they'd be ready. 6 months later, Ethan stood in the renovated offices of Locke Technologies, watching the morning sun stream through the windows of what had once been Alex's office. The space had been completely redesigned, transformed from a corner office into an open area where the new security team could monitor the building's systems. The quarterly reports are ready, Raina said, entering with a tablet and a cup of coffee. She'd fully embraced her role as head of security and internal affairs, and the company was stronger than ever under their joint leadership. How do we look? Ethan asked, accepting the coffee gratefully. Better than expected. The Patterson Group settlement came through, and we recovered 80% of the stolen funds. The foundation is fully funded, and we've helped 12 other companies avoid similar fraud schemes. And Vincent Caruso? Still in maximum security prison. He'll never see the outside world again. The final confrontation with Caruso had come 3 weeks after they'd returned to the city. He tried to plant a bomb in the building's parking garage, but the FBI had been waiting for him. The arrest had been swift and decisive, ending his reign of terror once and for all. Sometimes I still can't believe it's over, Ethan said. It's over, Raina assured him. We're safe, the company is thriving, and we're helping other people avoid what we went through. And us? What about us? Ethan set down his coffee and turned to face her. I've been thinking about what Agent Harrison said. About new identities, new lives. Having second thoughts? No. I'm having first thoughts. About the future. About what we want to build together. Raina smiled. What did you have in mind? Well, I was thinking we could start with this. He pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket and dropped to one knee. Raina's eyes widened as he opened it to reveal a diamond ring. Raina Cole, he said, his voice shaking slightly. You saved my life in more ways than one. You showed me what it means to trust someone, to fight for something bigger than myself. Will you marry me? Ethan. Raina's voice was barely a whisper. I know it's been a crazy few months. I know we've been through hell together. But I can't imagine facing the future without you. Yes, she said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, of course I'll marry you. He slipped the ring onto her finger and stood up, pulling her into his arms. They kissed as the morning sun filled the office, and for a moment, everything was perfect. So what's next? Raina asked when they broke apart. Next we plan a wedding. And then we keep building what we started. The company? The company, the foundation, our life together. All of it. I love the sound of that. As they stood together, looking out at the city they'd both come to love, Ethan realized that the car accident that had brought them together had been the best thing that had ever happened to him. Not because of the crash itself, but because of the woman who'd pulled him from the wreckage. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Regret what? Stopping to help a stranger on the highway. Getting involved in all of this. Raina looked at him, her eyes bright with love and laughter. Never. Not for a single second. Even when people were shooting at us? Especially then. That's when I knew you were worth fighting for. I love you, Raina Cole. I love you too, Ethan Locke. From across the office, Jerome looked up from his computer and smiled. Sarah was at her desk, fielding calls from reporters who wanted to interview the couple who'd taken down a major criminal organization. The rest of the staff was busy with their work, but there was a sense of hope and renewal in the air. You know, Raina said, I think we should write a book about this. About what? About how sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can lead to the best thing that happens to you. I like it. What would we call it? How about, she saved a man from a burning car crash and they saved each other? Ethan laughed. That's a terrible title. I'll work on it. As they turned back to their work, preparing for another day of building their future together, neither of them noticed the news report playing on the office television. The anchor was talking about a new corporate investigation division that was helping companies across the country avoid fraud and corruption. The Cole Locke Security Group, the anchor said, has already helped prevent millions of dollars in losses and has assisted law enforcement in prosecuting several major criminal organizations. Turn it up, Raina said, grabbing the remote. In a statement released today, the anchor continued, The company announced a new partnership with the FBI to create a nationwide database of corporate fraud schemes. The initiative is being funded by the Locke Foundation, which was established with money recovered from the Patterson Group investigation. "We're famous," Ethan said with a grin. "We're making a difference," Raina corrected. "There's a difference. I like making a difference." "Me too." As the day progressed, they worked side by side, handling calls from potential clients, reviewing security protocols, and planning the expansion of their operations. It was the kind of work that felt meaningful, the kind of work that made a difference in the world. Around noon, Detective Santos stopped by to congratulate them on their engagement and to update them on the ongoing investigation of other companies that had been targeted by Caruso's organization. "You started something big," she told them. "The FBI has opened investigations in 12 states, and they're finding evidence of similar schemes everywhere." "How many victims?" Raina asked. "Hundreds, maybe thousands. But because of what you did, we're finally able to help them." "That's all we ever wanted," Ethan said. "Well, you got it. And then some." After Detective Santos left, Ethan and Raina found themselves alone in the office for the first time all day. The staff had gone to lunch and the phones were quiet. "So," Raina said, twirling her engagement ring around her finger, "when should we have this wedding? How about right now?" "Right now? Why wait? We've already been through the worst together. We know we can handle anything." "What about a dress? Flowers? Guests? We'll figure it out. The important thing is that we're together." Raina looked at him, seeing the same determination in his eyes that had carried them through the darkest moments of their ordeal. "You know what? You're right. Let's do it." "Really? Really? But I want Jerome to be your best man, and Sarah to be my maid of honor." "Deal." "What about a location? How about the park where we had our first real conversation? The one where you told me about the embezzlement?" "Perfect." And so, on a warm afternoon in late spring, Ethan Locke and Raina Cole were married in a small ceremony in the city park, surrounded by their friends and colleagues from Locke Technologies. It wasn't the elaborate wedding either of them had imagined, but it was perfect in its simplicity. "Do you, Ethan, take Raina to be your wife?" asked the Justice of the Peace. "I do," Ethan said, his voice strong and clear. "Do you, Raina, take Ethan to be your husband?" "I do," Raina replied, her eyes bright with tears of joy. "Then by the power vested in me by the state, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." As they kissed, their friends and colleagues cheered, and somewhere in the distance, the sound of sirens reminded them of the world they'd left behind. But for this moment there was only love, hope, and the promise of a future they'd build together. Later, as they danced to music playing from Jerome's phone, Raina looked up at her new husband and smiled. "Any regrets?" she asked. "Only one," Ethan replied. "What's that?" "That I didn't crash my car sooner." Raina laughed, the sound echoing through the park. "Don't even joke about that." "I'm not joking. Everything good in my life started the night you pulled me from that wreckage. Everything good in my life started when I decided to stop that night." "So we're both grateful for bad drivers?" "We're both grateful for second chances." As the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Ethan and Raina Locke danced in the park where their love story had truly begun. They'd faced danger together, overcome betrayal, and built something beautiful from the ashes of destruction. They were partners in every sense of the word, in business, in life, and in love. And as they looked toward the future, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they'd face them together. The woman who'd saved a man from a burning car crash had discovered that sometimes the best way to save someone else is to let them save you too. 2 years later, Raina Locke stood in the nursery of their new home, gently rocking their 3-month-old daughter Emma, while soft morning light filtered through the window. The room was painted in soft yellow and white, with a mobile of stars and moons hanging over the crib. It was a far cry from the corporate offices and safe houses that had defined their early relationship. "She's got your eyes," Ethan said from the doorway, his voice filled with wonder. Even after 3 months he still seemed amazed that this tiny person belonged to them. "And your stubborn streak," Raina replied with a smile. "She refused to sleep until exactly 3 a.m. That's my girl. Never does anything the easy way." Ethan approached and wrapped his arms around both of them, creating a circle of warmth and love. Baby Emma opened her dark eyes and made a soft cooing sound, as if she approved of the family huddle. "I can't believe how much has changed," Raina said, leaning back against her husband's chest. 2 years ago, I was a single woman working late nights and living alone. Now I have a family, a thriving business, and a beautiful home. 2 years ago, I was a workaholic who trusted no one and had no idea what real love felt like, Ethan added. Now I have everything I never knew I wanted. The past 2 years had been a whirlwind of growth and change. The Cole Lock Security Group had expanded to offices in 6 cities, helping dozens of companies avoid fraud and corruption. The Lock Foundation had provided assistance to over 200 victims of corporate crime. But more importantly, Ethan and Raina had built a life together that was filled with purpose, love, and now the joy of parenthood. Do you remember what you said to me in the hospital? Raina asked. About not knowing what would happen next? I remember everything about that night. Every word, every look, every moment I started falling in love with you. You said you didn't know what would happen next. Did you ever imagine this? Ethan looked down at his daughter, who was now gripping his finger with her tiny hand. I couldn't have imagined anything this perfect. A wife who's my best friend and business partner, a daughter who's already the center of my world, a company that actually makes a difference. And no one trying to kill us, Raina added with a laugh. That's definitely a plus. Emma began to fuss and Raina recognized the signs. Someone's hungry. I'll feed her while you get ready for work. Actually, Ethan said, I was thinking we could both take the day off. Jerome can handle the office, and Sarah's perfectly capable of managing the client meetings. Really? You want to take a day off? I want to spend the day with my family. We could take Emma to the park, have a picnic, maybe visit the spot where we got married. That sounds perfect. An hour later, they were sitting on a blanket in the same park where they'd exchanged vows, watching Emma sleep in her carrier while they shared sandwiches and iced tea. The spring air was warm and the trees were full of new green leaves. I have something for you, Ethan said, pulling a small wrapped box from the picnic basket. What's the occasion? No occasion. Just wanted to give my wife something special. Raina opened the box to find a delicate gold necklace with a small pendant in the shape of a star. It's beautiful. What's it for? Look at the back. She turned the star over and found an engraving. For the woman who saved my life and gave me everything. Ethan, this is... Tears filled her eyes. I love it. Help me put it on. As he fastened the necklace around her neck, Raina thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. The highway rescue that had seemed like a random act of kindness had turned into the greatest love story of her life. I have something for you too, she said, pulling out an envelope from the diaper bag. What's this? Open it. Inside was a certificate from the mayor's office, officially recognizing Ethan as Citizen of the Year for his work with the Lock Foundation and his efforts to combat corporate crime. Raina, how did you? I may have pulled some strings. The ceremony is next week, and I get to introduce you as my husband, business partner, and hero. I'm not the hero in this story. You are. You saved my life, helped me rebuild my company, and gave me a family I never thought I'd have. We saved each other, Raina said, the same words she'd spoken on their wedding day. Baby Emma stirred and opened her eyes, looking around with a curious expression that reminded them both of Raina's analytical nature. She reached toward her mother, and Raina lifted her from the carrier. What do you think, sweetheart? Raina asked their daughter. Should we tell Daddy about the surprise? What surprise? Ethan asked, his eyes lighting up with curiosity. Dr. Martinez called yesterday with the results of Emma's last checkup. She's perfectly healthy, developing beautifully, and... Raina paused dramatically. And she's going to be a big sister. Ethan's mouth fell open. Are you saying? I'm saying that in about 7 months, Emma is going to have a little brother or sister. Really? Another baby? Really? I wanted to wait until I was sure, but the blood test confirmed it yesterday. Ethan let out a whoop of joy that startled Emma, who began to cry. He immediately apologized, gently stroking her cheek until she calmed down. 2 children, he said in wonder. I can't believe it. Can you handle it? 2 kids, a growing business, and a wife who's still learning how to balance everything. I can handle anything as long as I have you. They spent the rest of the afternoon in the park, talking about names for the new baby, making plans for expanding their home, and watching Emma discover the world around her. As the sun began to set, they packed up their picnic and headed home. You know what I realized today? Raina said as they drove through the city. What's that? I used to think that helping people meant solving their problems for them. But what we've built together, the company, the foundation, our family, it's about giving people the tools to solve their own problems. And the support system to know they're not alone. Exactly. Just like you weren't alone when you needed help, and I wasn't alone when I decided to help you. Speaking of help, Ethan said, Do you think we should call your parents and tell them about the baby? Already done. I called them this morning. Mom cried, Dad made jokes about needing a bigger house, and they're both planning to visit next month. What about Jerome and Sarah? Are we telling them tomorrow? I thought we could surprise them at the staff meeting. Let them figure it out when I order ginger ale instead of coffee. They'll probably guess immediately. Sarah's been watching you like a hawk since Emma was born, looking for signs of another pregnancy. She's a good friend. They both are. As they pulled into their driveway, Raina looked at the house they'd bought 6 months ago, a colonial-style home with a big yard and enough room for a growing family. It was nothing like the sterile apartment Ethan had lived in when they first met, or the small efficiency that had been Raina's home for years. I love our life, she said simply. I love our life too. That evening, after Emma had been fed and put to bed, Ethan and Raina sat on their couch, going through the mail and planning their week. It was domestic and ordinary and absolutely perfect. Letter from Alex, Ethan said, holding up an envelope with a prison return address. What does he say? Ethan opened it and read silently for a moment. He's doing well. Taking business classes, working in the prison library. He says he's proud of what we've built and hopes that someday we can forgive him. Do you forgive him? I'm working on it. He made terrible choices, but he also saved our lives in the end. And if he hadn't embezzled that money, I never would have met you. Everything happens for a reason, Raina said. Do you really believe that? I believe that good people can create good things from bad situations. And I believe that love can overcome just about anything. Even attempted murder and corporate fraud? Even attempted murder and corporate fraud. They were interrupted by the sound of Emma crying from the nursery. Ethan started to get up, but Raina placed a hand on his arm. My turn, she said. You handled the 2 a.m. feeding. We're a team. The best team. As Raina went to tend to their daughter, Ethan looked around their living room at the family photos on the mantle, the baby toys scattered on the floor, the business awards hanging on the wall. 2 years ago this life would have seemed impossible. Now it felt like the most natural thing in the world. When Raina returned with Emma, who was now content and drowsy, they sat together on the couch, their daughter between them. What are you thinking about? Raina asked, noticing the contemplative look on her husband's face. I'm thinking about that night on the highway. About how one moment of kindness from a stranger changed everything. It wasn't just kindness. It was choice. I chose to stop, chose to help, chose to get involved in your life. And I chose to trust you, chose to let you help me, chose to fall in love with you. And now we get to choose how we raise our children, how we run our business, how we spend our lives together. What do you choose? I choose to keep building something beautiful with you. I choose to raise our children to be kind and brave and strong. I choose to keep helping people and making a difference. And I choose to love you for the rest of my life. Those are excellent choices. What about you? What do you choose? I choose all of that, plus I choose to be the best husband and father I can be. I choose to never take this family for granted. And I choose to remember every day that the luckiest thing that ever happened to me was crashing my car on a highway where a brave woman decided to stop and help. The luckiest thing that ever happened to me was being on that highway at exactly the right moment to save the man I was going to fall in love with. Emma made a soft sound as if she approved of her parents' choices. In the months to come, she would grow up hearing the story of how her parents met, how her mother saved her father from a burning car, how they worked together to solve a dangerous mystery, and how their love grew stronger with each challenge they faced. She would learn that sometimes the most important thing you can do is stop to help a stranger, because that stranger might turn out to be the person who changes your life forever. And someday when she was old enough to understand, her parents would tell her that the best families aren't just born, they're built, one choice at a time, by people who decide to love each other no matter what. As the evening grew late, the small family settled into their bedtime routine. Ethan checked the locks and turned off the lights while Raina put Emma in her crib. They met in their bedroom, where they built a life filled with love, trust, and the promise of tomorrow. Sweet dreams, Mrs. Locke, Ethan said, kissing his wife goodnight. Sweet dreams, Mr. Locke, Raina replied, settling into his arms. Outside their window, the city lights twinkled like stars, and somewhere in the distance, they could hear the sound of traffic on the highway where their love story had begun. But they were safe at home, surrounded by the family they'd created and the future they were building together. The woman who had saved a man from a burning car crash had discovered that the greatest rescue of all was learning to let someone love you back. And the man who had been saved had learned that the most precious thing you can give someone is not just your trust, but your heart. Together, they had built something beautiful from the ashes of tragedy, and they would continue building it for the rest of their lives, One day at a time, one choice at a time, one love at a time. The end of their story was really just the beginning of their forever.